trailer trash king. Well, count me what you will, I ain't upscale, I know what you really mean. That's just life, now let's strive when you're the trailer trash king. I know what you really mean. That's just life, now let's strive when you're the trailer trash king.
Well, it's been kind of a mixed bag in terms of responses for this first block of trailers. By that, those of you that tuned in last week saw the top block of TOHO Films trailers, predominantly original Japanese language Godzilla trailers. And judging from the majority of responses, I'm going to continue on with these. So if you don't particularly care for this block, turn it off for, say, the next 10 minutes. Come on back to the show. But we're going to continue on with the Godzilla block, as it were. We're going to start out with something that's actually, I mentioned the Godzilla block, and now looking at the trailers, I don't have one gosh darn Godzilla trailer this week. But there's still films from Toho, and there's still the science fiction flavor. So we're going to start out with something called The Mysterians from 1957. Kick it into one of Godzilla's most arch foes and or guardians, depending on which side of the fence they're on any particular week. They could be friends, they could be enemies, they could be beating each other up, they could be helping save the planet, etc., etc. Something called Mothra from 1961, the original feature Mothra. And rounding out this block, a little thing called Gorath from 1962. Don't know a whole lot about it, but honest to God, it looked cool. There, that being said, we'll check these out, and I'll be right back.
壮烈無比の一大攻防戦。構想3年2億の拒否、ゴジララドンをしのぐ宇宙科学巨編地球防衛軍をご期待ください。大きな不幸？
どうしてです？
モスラが来るのです。私たちを助けに。
モスラ？モスラ発見！
いいですか？小美人を島に返さない限りモスラはやってくるんですよ。
この日本へ、この東京へ。そうなってからじゃもう遅いんですよ。
日本の善ちゃん食いついたら離れっこないよ。
だってモスラに食いつけって言うんですか？
何？
善ちゃん、モスラが横田基地に現れたのよ。
横田？
幽玄のメロディーに乗って登場する謎の小美人たち。艶やかに繰り広げられる舞台から人類の恐怖モスラを呼ぶ。
モスラモスラやモスラ。
卵から生まれ地を這い前を破って空を飛び3段階に成長する不死身の大怪獣モスラ。構想3年制作費2億、未曾有のスケールで東宝が放つスペクタクル巨編。突発、全世界に非常警報発令。人類に危機刻々と迫る海星ゴラス地球に激突か。
こちら JX2 定常。カプセル1号、予定の衛星軌道へはとても近寄れそうもありません。
全世界の科学者を動員して南極基地に展開するゴラス対策陣の一大攻防戦なるか。
いけませんわ、そんな。河野先生。
言わしてもらいます。今度だけは私の意見に従ってください。
もしものことがあれば国連が責任を持つ。
もしものことがあってから責任持ったって何になるんです？人類は滅亡するかもしれないんですよ。
いっそのことゴラスが地球へぶつかってみんな死んじまった方が幸せかもしれないんだ。
ゴラスが太陽系に侵入すれば
45日目に地球に到達します。
制作費3億8000万、TOHOが世界に誇る宇宙科学人と特殊撮影を駆使して雄大なスケールで描く超スペクタクル巨演、妖精ゴラス、妖精ゴラス、ここに堂々完成。
So we have the Mysterians from 1957. Invaders from space try to take over the humans. It's been done, but now with this type of originality. Mothra from 1961. Yeah, I know it starts out as this humongous, lack of a better term, turd-like larva type thing. Yes, I said it. If there are any doubts, rewind the tape. But it turns into this huge, majestic moth. And it turns into this beautiful creature, honest to God, and you wonder how something like this could destroy a planet, or why it would destroy a planet. And then Gorath, like I said, please, if somebody has information on Gorath, email me at sjtrailertrash@yahoo. I don't have any information on Gorath. Give me some background on it, and I'll try to touch on it in a future show. So with that being said, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with, thank goodness, the end of the Abbott Costello trailers. We'll be right back.
Meet one of America's foremost experts on television, Martha Jenkins, popular babysitter. Martha, you've watched just about every kind of TV set there is. How do you tell the good ones?
That's easy. By the picture. And then I like a set that stays in tune, so you don't have to get up and fiddle with it all the time. This one's just terrific. See how clear it is? This is the kind my parents are planning to buy.
An RCA Victor. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from the lips of an expert, a babysitter who really gets around. You can depend on RCA Victor television for the clearest, strongest, steadiest pictures with the least amount of tuning. Remember this when you buy television. Remember, too, that every year, more people buy RCA Victor than any other television. Which twin has the Fig Newton? You see, all that's got figs isn't Fig Newtons. Only the biggest, ripest, sweetest tasting figs go into Fig Newton's jam filling. How about sharing them, sis? Everybody loves Fig Newton's cakes, baked only by Nabisco.
One day a few weeks ago, I looked all over the house for Billy. Of course, I found out later that my son was in darkest Africa. Billy was hunting elephants with his trusty Mattel toy burp gun. That's the only fully automatic cap gun in the world, you know. Real safe. Fires one shot or in bursts. He never misses with that burp gun. And it's so simple to play with. The safety catch keeps it from firing while Billy winds it. Then he closes the breech and checks his ammunition. There's plenty of room for spare caps in the magazine. He's off again, hunting tigers in India. But don't worry. The burp gun's so safe, it's got the parent's seal of approval. Only $4 wherever toys are sold. You...
Oh, steadily on the downslide, and they're just about reaching the bottom of the pit. The final set of our Abbott Costello trailers this time around. I'm looking at the lineup, and yeah, this is as low as it gets. They were on the outs, both as a team, professionally. It leaked over onto the screen. They weren't getting along. There were various inner demons that both Bud Abbott and Lou Costello were fighting, and it's a shame that it could happen to such a classic tag team, but all things come to an end. So we're going to start this block with Abbott Costello Meet the Mummy from 1955. We're going to kick into Dance With Me, Henry from 1956. And after that, this next one is rather hilarious. It's a takeoff on the classic Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. This one being the 30-Foot Bride of Candy Rock from 1959. This one was different in a way that it featured just Lou Costello as a hand-picked husband and no Bud Abbott to be seen. But rounding out this block and rounding out our block of Abbott Costello trailers for the season, a little film from 1965 called The World of Abbott Costello. This one is kind of different in the way that the trailer for this film is a compilation of scenes from all the Abbott Costello films. So dig deep into the concept of that, and we'll be right back.
Find the mummy. Don't worry, the mummy will find you.
You'll howl as you follow Bud and Lou in a strange land where exotic dancers perform ancient rituals. You'll scream at this mystic world of mad magic and uproarious adventure.
Does this mean anything to you?
It means death to whoever holds it.
Starring Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, with sultry Marie Windsor giving you your first look inside Costello.
Turn on the lights.
Let's stop fooling and cut them open. And Peggy King, George Gobel's TV girlfriend.
You flew in from the Middle West and certainly impressed the population hereabouts.
Imagine Lou trying to be charming to a snake. And Bud at the end of his rope.
Stop blowing!
Your nerves will jangle as they tangle with terror, meddle with murder, and try to elude a curse 4,000 years old.
Get rid of it! No! No! What is it? Dynamite!
I'm going to talk about Dance With Me, Henry.
Dance with me, Henry.
Huh?
Dance.
Just a minute. What's this?
What's on second?
Who's on second?
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third.
He's on third, but I know who's on first.
Who?
Dance With Me, Henry.
Dance with me, Henry.
Dance With Me, Henry.
Dance with me, Henry.
Dead. That's Martin Proctor, the district attorney. He's been shot.
You're going to say something or I'm not going to leave here. No!
It's a wonderfully warm and wacky story that's as mad as a merry-go-round, crazy as cops and robbers in a funhouse, and a million laughs all the way. It's Abbott and Costello at their zany best.
I'm going to get on that phone and call the cops.
Wait a minute. Do you know what they do to squealers?
I don't care what they do with squealers.
They shoot them. They shoot them down like dogs. They stuff them in a barrel of cement and throw them right in the ocean.
Wrong number.
Come on, I gotta sing.
Artie, what's happened? I'm so big. Well, stop staring and get me something to wear. Do you still love me?
From the tip of your toes to the top of your head.
Giants! Giants!
Oh, Lord. Get me there by sundown. And please, Lord, don't let the Pentagon find out about this.
Can't rule out invasion from space. All right. All orders top secret.
Little old me isn't too much woman for little old you, is she?
Lady, if you were triplets, you wouldn't know what too much woman is for little old me.
Jackie, you leave my husband alone.
How dare you speak to me that way? I said...
Cool off.
Flying saucers! Flying saucers! This is it! Look!
I was just carried away by Abbott and Costello. The men who put the laughs in laughter.
You better get out of here before something happens.
Here they are, on sea, on sand,
Get on the top of the water, Shorty!
and on high.
Hold it, Tubby! Swell! Now turn around so I can get your face in the picture.
They bring you the funniest scenes from their funniest films, all rolled into a universe of laughter for young, old, and in between.
Boy, what a time we have with them three. Forward! March!
Dig right in. Go right like that, Betty.
It ain't nice to do those things.
Please make up your mind and get settled here. Go ahead and eat your soup.
It's yours.
The world of Abbott and Costello.
Claxon Jackson is my name, bold adventure is my game. Think of what you'd want to be, then call on me.
I want to drive a Jeep.
Claxon Jackson. Claxon Jackson.
gosh, you chug bug.
Action Jackson.
I want to drive a snowmobile.
Action Jackson is my name. Bold adventure is my game. Think of what you'd want to be, then call on me. Action Jackson. All items sold separately. Action Jackson. By Mego. It's a great beach house. She can hardly wait for my doll named Dynamite. Here she is with Don, her date, at the house of Dynamite. See the raft in their very own pool. A beach or two, everything is cool.
You can have such fun with Dynamite and her beach house. Comes complete with cabinets, table and chairs, sofa, plant, hammock, and even a real inflatable pool, raft, and beach ball.
In my beach house, they're quite a pair. Come and play with Dynamite. I can make her pose in so many ways. Now up she goes and look, she stays. I can take my beach house everywhere just to play with Dynamite.
Dynamite's easy-to-assemble beach house comes with everything you see, even Dynamite. Dawn sold separately.
Okay. Well, upon further checking my library and checking my lineup, I decided to preempt the Troma block this week because I found in my collection a film called Booby Trap. Don't worry, Troma will be back next week and it's full-length block, but I felt Booby Trap was so worthy of showing that, well, it's a 25-minute film, number one, and it falls loosely into the driver's ed category, but it's basically regarding the hazards of road construction, abatements, or not abatements, abutments, underpasses, overpasses, things that were potentially hazardous then to the average driver, which would be unheard of now. So with that said, that'd be in the classroom classic for this week, something called Booby Trap from, we'll say, early 1970s, late 1960s maybe. So with that said, I've been your host, Scotty J. You've been watching Trailer Trash TV. www.trailertrash.tv.150m.com is the new and improved website. sjtrailertrash@yahoo.com is the way you get hold of me with any questions, comments, whatever. So with that being said, we'll see you next time out.
Built to strict safety standards with all the latest life-saving technology. Or is it? Tens of thousands of new expressway miles, like this one, have been opened to traffic in recent years. interstate expressways, turnpikes, state highways. Just how safe are these so-called modern roads? And how safe are millions of miles of older highways? The answer is in your morning newspaper, in the stories and photos of adults and children destroyed or maimed for life in crashes into any one of the host of hazards that routinely, needlessly, line the sides of our highways. I'm Ben Kelly for the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. I want you to join me for an uncommon look at an all too common part of your environment, the mess of booby traps that has turned the sides of our roads into instruments of death and injury for thousands of car occupants each year. You and I see these roadsides every day, but not the way we'll see them for the next few minutes. The bridge piers and signposts, the trees and rocks. You need stray from the road only a foot or so, for only a moment or so, to risk running into any one of a number of lethal hazards. Of course, if cars never left the road, there'd be no problem. But they do, all the time, for all sorts of reasons. What about people in cars that veer off the road because the road itself was poorly designed? Skidding in wet weather, for instance. These films were shot in everyday traffic near Washington, D.C. by a congressional staff team investigating highway design that actually encourages skidding. Commonplace skids like these, whether caused by roads or drivers, can bring cruel and unusual punishment to occupants when their vehicles are hurtled into roadside death traps even before their drivers have a chance to regain control. Have you ever been thrown into confusion along an unfamiliar expressway by misleading signs or a poorly placed exit ramp? These are interstate highway segments where the same congressional investigators gathered filmed evidence of erratic driving caused by poor signs and poor ramp design. A moment before they came into camera range, the drivers of these cars and trucks were confronted by confusing signs that caused their harrowing near misses. This kind of forced indecision can also take cars and their occupants right into one of the many unforgiving obstacles that line the roadsides. How about the mother whose car veered off the road when she turned to look at her crying child in the back seat? Or the man who lost control of his car when his faulty engine mounts broke or a tire blew? And what about the people forced off the road by drunks or incompetent drivers? Do they really deserve death or a lifetime in a wheelchair? Some public health people are starting to recognize the roadside booby trap menace for what it really is, a widespread environmental crisis. And they're aggressively seeking and promoting effective ways to combat it. One of these is Susan P. Baker. As a member of the faculty of the Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health, working in the office of the Chief Medical Examiner of the state of Maryland, she's long been concerned by this problem.
Highway injuries are the same kind of public health problem that polio or impure water or anything else is, except that they're bigger than most public health problems. If we need pure water for people to drink, we don't depend upon the housewife to boil her own water. We purify the water for a whole community because this is the only way of being sure that that community is going to be safe. Why then don't we remove the hazards from the sides of the roads instead of trying to educate each person not to hit those poles? Because we can't educate the people not to hit them. What are they going to do when their car loses a wheel or when some drunk comes and sideswipes them? Think of in terms of some educational program in which they learn they should avoid poles along the sides of the highways. When you see these kids and these older folks who come in from the highways, who end up in the city morgue, you're looking at perhaps 2 kids who were killed when their car hit a tree that had been planted there. You're looking at folks whose car was split by the end of a guardrail that wasn't buried. You may see a driver whose brakes failed when he was going downhill into a dead-end intersection and there was a gas and electric pole right in the middle of his path, and he got killed. But in all the thousands of cases we've had in the morgue, I have yet to see or hear of any case where a person was killed simply because his car went out of control and came to rest on a bare shoulder.
Of course, most roadsides are far from bare. Driving along today's highways, you literally run a gauntlet of hazards that have been left there or placed there by design. Exposed concrete bridge piers and bridge railings, steep embankments, ditches and drop-offs, rigid steel signposts, unyielding light poles, telephone and utility poles, the spear-like ends of guardrails. Look familiar? It should, because it's simply a replica of the environment we drive through and take for granted every day.
In fact, it's a replica of this busy interchange on a major urban expressway. Right here, we're surrounded by the death traps we just saw on the model. The concrete bridge pier, the embankment. How'd you like to hit these rocks at 60 miles an hour? The ditches and drop-offs, the rigid steel signpost, the unyielding light pole, anchored in concrete, the telephone pole, as usual, just inches off the pavement. The guardrail, with an end like this, it can spear right through your car and you, if you stray only a few feet off the road. If your car misses this exit here, it may end up in this gore area here, demolished by one of these signposts. Here in this gore area, just across the highway, there's a signpost and a snub-nosed guardrail. Either design could destroy your car and you.
Look around the roads you travel. You'll see these booby traps and others as well. Stray boulders at the road's edge or in the median. Jagged rock cuts waiting to snag your car, like this one, where one person has already been killed. Decorative rock walls, so popular on parkways. Trees left or planted right beside the road. Storm sewers and culverts. We've taken these menaces for granted for such a long time. Dr. William Haddon Jr. is president of the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety.
These traps along the side of the road are one of the many everyday, modern, man-made environmental messes that are damaging people. They damage people in ways that, in the final result, are just as serious as the combustion products that go into the lungs, whether from smoking or from somebody's smokestack, or the industrial chemicals that are also man-made and allowed to be present or even put in the environment. It's just a tragedy that people don't yet understand this enough to bring to bear the governmental and private, the marketplace pressures to stop this needless environmental contamination with hazards very regularly spaced where they do this kind of damage to people.
Are there ways to avoid contaminating the sides of new highways? And what about decontaminating the millions of miles of roads whose sides already are infested with booby traps? The technological answers have been available for years. They're economical, easy to implement, easy to maintain. And most important, they prevent damage to people. Take rigid light poles and signposts, which are common roadside killers. They wouldn't be if they were set back a safe distance from the side of the pavement or placed on the facing of bridge overpasses. For those situations where poles or posts have to be located near the edge of the road, breakaway designs that don't kill or maim have been well known for years.
Breakaway poles, such as the ones being tested here, are starting to be used in some states. During 1 year, breakaway poles installed along selected sections of interstate highway in Louisiana were hit 16 times at more than 60 miles an hour. No one was killed. Yet most of the light poles and signposts you see along the highway are not built to break away like this in a crash. They're built to stand fast, and they kill. Research is also finding ways to modify the millions of unyielding telephone and utility poles already planted along the edges of streets and highways, so that they'll give when they're hit, as in this simulated 20-mile-an-hour crash.
what about guardrail? Does it always really protect you? Not if it's guardrail that doesn't need to be there. When guardrail separates you from a clear roadside recovery area, it's an obstacle, not a protector. A guardrail is justified only when it keeps your car from hitting a worse hazard. Incidentally, take a look at this. A car hitting the guardrail here might well be guided into the bridge railing here. Now, had the guardrail been brought forward and fastened to the side of the bridge, there'd be far less danger that your car would come to a destructive stop, pocketed between bridge and guardrail. This same sort of design, hostile to life and limb, is commonplace also on bridge abutments and support pillars. Where you have to use guardrail, it's important that it do its job. It should not bounce you back across traffic like this. It should slow your car to a safe stop. Guardrail needn't let vehicles crash through into greater hazards, even heavier vehicles like buses and trucks. Guardrail like this protectively absorbs the energy of crashes by cushioning the vehicle when it's hit. In other, tighter places, alongside a bridge, for instance, or at a rock cut, or in a narrow median strip, this kind of contoured concrete barrier does an impressive job of deflecting the car away from the hazard and back along the road. British researchers are testing what they call the dragon curb, sections of tubing that hold a straying car on course on the shoulder of the road and keep it out of a crash. The end of the guardrail is itself a death trap if it isn't humanely designed. Instead of being aimed at you like a spear, it can help slow a crashing vehicle to a safe stop if it is properly flared and anchored. If your car misses the exit, the gore area could offer you a chance of recovery if it's free of booby traps. This sign, which we saw out on the highway a few moments ago, could have been made to break away in a crash. If the gore area can't be cleared of all hazards, bridge railings, for instance, or toll booths, easy-to-install cushioning systems are available to slow crashing vehicles to a gentle stop so their human contents won't be destroyed. Carefully arranged systems of empty oil drums, for instance. This is a test crash, and this is a real crash filmed automatically on a Texas highway at moment of impact. The driver was able to drive away from the high-speed crash that otherwise could have killed him. Canisters of sand can also do the job. Installations like this have been crashed into scores of times at speeds up to 75 miles an hour without a single known fatality. This system uses cells filled with water to slow your car. Another readily available system of cells is made of a dry, crushable substance. Crash cushions like these are already in use on the Golden Gate Bridge, the New York State Thruway, and other urban and rural roads, where they're saving lives simply by providing the few needed seconds and the few needed feet of energy-absorbing material to slow the crashing vehicle in a way that dissipates the crash forces so that they don't seriously damage the occupants. This is Interstate 95 between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, Maryland. One of the newest stretches of interstate highway open to traffic. Its shoulders are clear of hazards. Its signs are set away from the edge of the road, sometimes on bridge overpasses. Its lights and other fixtures that must be near the edge of the road are on breakaway supports. Its bridge piers are set far back from the traveled right-of-way. The Federal Highway Administration says that you can stray off a road like this one at speeds up to 50 miles an hour without serious damage. But a federal highway official has warned that if you stray off most other streets or roads at speeds of more than just 12 miles an hour, you're all too likely to crash into a needless hazard along the edge with serious damage.
You know, one of the worst examples we know of is closest to the Washington locations where the decisions are made that leave these things along our roads and that are killing so many people. Right over by the National Airport, which is a government-owned facility under total government control. You don't need any permission to make changes. We have streams of cars coming and going on the access road. And right next to the road, about every 100 feet or so, are great big solid barrels of concrete. And right out of the middle of them comes a pole. And any car that strays off of the side of that, for whatever reason, is going to get decelerated so rapidly that the people inside are going to be badly mutilated or killed. And yet, about 1,000 feet away, we have one of the busiest airports in the country with runways along which we would not put such structures to kill and maim and destroy the vehicles, in that case, aircraft hitting them. And yet the landing speeds are quite similar in many cases and on many parts of the runway. We have sense enough to do this for airports. When are we going to have sense enough to stop killing people along the sides of our roads by putting these booby traps there that result in the same kind of damage as if the plane crashed into a pole right off the edge of the runway? It's essential that people understand this and bring the pressure to bear to get these messes cleaned up, because they were put there by man, they can be taken away by man, and we can have a lot less blood all over our vehicles on the highways and along them also.
If the roadside booby trap problem isn't yet solved, perhaps the single most important missing element is public insistence. Sufficient demand by people who will not settle for roadside environments that are literally stacked against them. One man who's been unwilling to put up with roadside hazards is a New York television repairman. Joe Linko is out in his service truck nearly every day, so he sees the problem firsthand.
Well, what happened is we had a concrete stanchion on the shoulder on the Cross Bronx Expressway. And the sign that it used to protect was gone, so I wanted to remove that concrete stanchion. So I told the city highway department, I told the state highway department, and they failed to act. So then I got a camera, and I went out there and started taking pictures of these things. Then and only then did I discover that this was only a small hazard. There was death traps all around us. The more pictures I took, the more serious things I saw. Oh, that's way back around 7 or 8 years ago, see. And at that time, we were starting to build a brand new interstate highway, see. If they would have listened to me at that time, we could have saved millions and millions of dollars not building these death traps to begin with. But because I was just an ordinary citizen, they just thought that I was someone just making noises there, see. And because of that, we have all these death traps needlessly.
Joe Linko took hundreds more pictures of booby traps, and in 1967, he showed them at a congressional investigative hearing. Congressman John Blatnick of Minnesota, now chairman of the House Public Works Committee, was presiding.
We found that there were severe needless accidents being repeated. There was a high frequency of accidents in certain places of the most modern highway design in the whole world. The first reports were, well, that's just a peculiar, it's a freak, somebody so-called goofed, it's an error, they will correct it. Well, we were curious. So we made a random check of each of the 9 major highway regions throughout the United States, which are administered by the then Bureau of Roads, now the Federal Highway Administration, and we found the identical errors, and we asked them to pick the highway stretch. You take us to your latest, most up-to-date system, just completed, a stretch of highway of interstate, just completed, just open, or about to be opened. And in each project, in each one of the 9 regions, the same miscalculations and errors in design and construction occurred. By the way, we had a case in Ohio where a great big tree was being banged continuously, and the highway safety people said that tree's got to be cut down, but they didn't have the jurisdiction to direct its removal. It had to come from the Department of Agriculture. Now, they never talked to each other, so we find this type of, again, lack of communication between 2 different departments. One day, the highway engineers, to their great pleasure, found the tree had been cut down. They're curious, want to find out who ordered it. And the Department of Agriculture ordered the tree be cut down because it had Dutch elm disease, not because it was a highway hazard.
Since Congressman Blatnick's hearings, others have started pushing to get roadsides diffused. The Federation of Insurance Counsel is an association of attorneys representing insurance companies. Companies, that is, who may have to pay out when a booby trap kills, maims, or destroys property. Andrew Rico is general counsel for the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, and he's also a member of the Federation's Highway Safety Committee, which is campaigning against the roadside hazard.
it's come to him. Why does he now have to have this suit in which the plaintiff or his defendant company he's representing, they're sitting there because a utility pole happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they've asked questions. Why should it be there? They also became concerned when some of the company attorneys found out that after they were paying for these poles, it ended up the company, utility company be it, or the highway department were putting the poles up in the same place and probably stronger, so that the next time somebody hit it, the damages would, instead of having a case for injuries, it would be a death claim.
As a result, the Federation of Insurance Council is distributing a booklet that tells how to monitor roadsides and report booby traps to highway authorities and the press. The problem isn't limited to the United States. These pictures were taken by a team of young activists from the Canada Council of Young Drivers. Using donated film, they crisscrossed the continent for a year, taking pictures and calling the attention of the press and highway officials to the menace posed by Canada's roadside death traps. Researchers from the University of Vermont went through their state, inventorying and photographing its roadside hazards. One of the Vermont researchers was Dr. Julian Waller.
Vermont calls itself the beckoning country because of its beauty. But we found that another thing was beckoning, that all of these roadside obstacles were beckoning. We got pictures from as long ago as 15 or 20 years ago, and we found many, many instances in which fatal crashes involve some sort of an obstacle. Some of these obstacles are trees, poles, embankments and culverts, rock ledges, bridges, and various other things. We found that this had been going on in the past. We looked at what was going on in the present. Things hadn't changed a jot. People were still crashing into one obstacle after another, and in fact, of the 150 people who died in Vermont in 1969 of highway crashes, 50 of them died because they hit obstacles that shouldn't have been there.
The General Accounting Office, which monitors federal spending for Congress, has pointed out in this report, and I quote, "The cost-effectiveness of highway safety improvement work in terms of lives saved was shown to be about 5 times greater than that of regular highway construction work. Yet the agency's investigators found that states are spending about 49 federal highway dollars on highway construction for every dollar they spend on safety-oriented improvements. They urged that more highway funds be directed toward getting rid of booby traps." One interchange, a single example of a deadly problem that reaches everywhere people travel on roadways. It's a problem that grows even larger with the building of every new mile of highway whose roadside design is indifferent to people.
Future highways don't need to be designed and built this way, nor do millions of miles of existing roads need to remain infested with roadside booby traps. But until a system of roadside safety standards is forcefully injected into the design, construction, and maintenance of highways, the problem won't be solved. Henry H. Wakeland is director of the Office of Surface Transportation of the National Transportation Safety Board, the federal agency charged with watchdogging government's role in upgrading the safety of our national transportation systems.
If the automobile manufacturer makes a product which has a defect, he must report the defect when he finds it to those who have purchased the car so that they can make some sort of a repair of it. But what happens in the highway field? It's not like that at all. There's no one who can, like the police officer, ride down a highway, identify all of the defects, and require that something be done about them. In effect, we do not have anyone who blows the whistle on the highway department which doesn't use the newest methods.
For the past few minutes, we've taken a close look at the deadliness of America's roadside environment. Perhaps it's changed the way you'll look from now on at the sides of the roads you travel. But one thing hasn't changed in these few minutes: the enormity of the problem itself. The hazards are still out here, lying in wait along millions of miles of expressway, highway, street, road.
So next time you read in your morning newspaper about a roadside death or injury, think to ask why the guardrail wasn't strong enough, or who put the rigid pole or post where it could and did kill, or who failed to shield the ditch or bridge abutment. Think to ask why the sides of our roads remain so littered with so many of these hazards that kill and maim. And next time you're out here, watch for the booby traps. When you see them, remember, they'll stay here, killing and maiming, only as long as the public tolerates them, and no longer.
Trailer trash king.